So over to you, Simon. I'll be back for the Q&A.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the welcome, and welcome everybody to this session today. So we are looking at empowering language learners with the life skills for work and higher education. So there's a big focus on life skills. Okay, just move through this first slide. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for interaction today. So as Katie says, please use the chat box for that. And if there's any questions, put them in the Q&A box. But I just wanted to start by letting you know about our World of Better Learning blog, which we've created here in Cambridge for teachers. You can see the URL link there at the bottom of the screen. So there's plenty of up-to-date articles on lots of different topics. And this is really one way that we can share the outcomes of the research that we do. And you can see here it's possible to search on this site by skill area, by learning focus, by topic, and by blog type. So plenty of information in there that you can either use in your next lesson perhaps, or to further your professional development. So in addition to that, there's all of this here that you can see on your screen. We have a Cambridge Insights on Demand playlist. And there's a load of videos here covering lots of different areas, such as pedagogical frameworks, corpora, focus on speaking, etc., etc. So do have a look at that link. Not right now, but you can do that after this webinar in your own time. So if there's anything that if I'm going too quickly, or if you have to refill your coffee, then this webinar will be recorded, and you'll be sent a link so you can watch this again if you've missed any of the points being made. So the one reason why I'm mentioning all this research that we have is I hope really that there's content that's useful to you as a teacher. But secondly, it's because my talk today is going to look at just one example of how the research that we've used is used to create content in our materials. And then the focus today is on life skills. As you can see in this little illustration here, the book of life skills. So first off, I talked about interactivity. I'm interested in hearing what you think. So in the chat box, can you let me know your thoughts? The question is, what skills do you think learners need if they're to be successful in higher education? And this doesn't need to be specifically language focused. This could be any general life skills. So maybe stick to one or two words if you can, but just have a think. What skills do learners need, in your opinion, to be successful? And we've had one straight in there, thank you very much. Analytical thinking, collaborative work, critical thinking, loads of good ones. Problem solving, yes. Yes, adaptable, effective communication, flexibility. I think you can see here that already we know of many different ones, many different life skills that students need. And it is varied, it is probably forever expanding, but there are plenty of them. So on screen now on the left-hand side, and there's a link again, which you might want to take a screenshot of or take a picture with your phone, is a recent research paper that we've created. And it's a meta-study of the employer demand for core employability skills compiled from many different sources. So some of the skills that employers are looking for are here. So let's just take a second to have a look at some of these. So definitely ones that you've just written in there, such as communication. We've got emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, leadership, technology. So there's a lot there, a lot being demanded of our students. But what you may notice is that the skills for higher education and the skills for employability do have a lot of overlap. And if we look now even, with post-COVID time, or not post-COVID, I know it's still continuing, unfortunately, but we can see that these skills haven't changed much. These are the top 5 skills from the National Association of Colleges and Employers as of April last year. So if we're looking at these top 5 ones here, which of these skills do you think are a natural fit for the language classroom? And you can just have a read of these. And we're looking at ability to work in a team, problem solving, analytical, communicative, both written and verbal. I think what we can say is that these are all really very relevant to the language classroom, as well as being demanded by employers. So another quick question, and you can put these into the chat box. When you think of life skills, which are the skills that come to mind? Which are the top skills that come to mind for you in the classroom when you're teaching life skills? Communication, I think, straight in there. That's a good one for the classroom. Yes, communication, critical thinking, teamwork, communication again, lots of communications. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you for your participation. Let's, I mean, for me, critical thinking is one that comes straight into my head. And it's definitely one of the key ones I think about. And this is a definition. Let's just click onto the definition here from a paper by Dr. Diane Halpern. She's a psychologist researcher from California. And I quite like this definition here. Let's just have a read all together. So it's critical thinking is the kind of thinking involved in solving problems, formulating inferences, calculating likelihoods, and making decisions. When people think critically, they are evaluating the outcomes of their thought process. So I quite like that definition. I don't know if you'd disagree or have another way of defining it, but I quite like that one. And we'll shortly see how important critical thinking is and why we've built this at Cambridge into some of our courses. However, as we've identified from previous research, there are definitely other skills and competencies that are important. And Dr. Halpern goes on to explain why critical thinking is so important. And just something for you to think about, but well, sorry, just to look at the quote, yeah, it's basically saying that everything is changing at a very fast pace, and the workforce is one critical place where this rapid change can be witnessed. So there's a lot that our students will need, a lot that they need to learn and study. But yeah, I'm wondering if you're already teaching. I hope you are. I'm sure you are teaching critical thinking skills with your students, because yeah, students. The skills we teach now, we don't know the jobs that are going to exist when they've finished, when they've graduated, or in a few years' time. But the preparation for these general skills, I think, can happen now, and they can happen in the language classroom. So because the life skills is an increasingly important area, our research team have recently developed the Cambridge Life Competencies framework. I hate saying competencies because it's a difficult word and I have to say it many times today, so please bear with me. So it's the Cambridge Life Competencies framework, and I'll be demonstrating this today, how we've embedded, from the research, how we've embedded that into one of our courses particularly, which is, as you can probably see up that way, it's the opposite, the Empower second edition course. I'm going to be using examples from this course today, but equally what I'm going to talk about, you can apply it to any course. So you can see there's this introduction brochure available for free, and the link is there to visit to download it. Hopefully our website has been having a few little troubles recently in the last week or so. Apologies for that if you try to get onto the website, and apologies if you can't immediately access any of the links I'm giving you today, but please bear with us. I know people are running around trying to work on that at the moment. So let's have a look a bit deeper now. You can see the key competencies here identified from that brochure on the left-hand side. You might need to refer to these later on in my talk, because I'm going to ask a question about one or two of these. So it might be a good time to take a little picture with your phone while I'm talking of these 7 skills. So the research team identified initially 5 skills, but this has been built on, this is still kind of fluid and flexible, making up to 7 skills now. So these are the areas that we found from the research as being the key life skills. So what does each competency really mean, and how can we develop these skills? This is the key question. So the blue box on the right unpacks just one of these, which is the creative thinking as an example. Each competency is divided into core areas, and these are the broad skills and behaviours that make up each of the competencies. And then these are further divided into the component skills, and these give more clarity and detail to exactly what is meant for each skill. So this is really a one-dimensional way to look at the framework. And let's think of this as the sort of vertical with the depth. But there is a second dimension, which we've also mapped. And this is across, let's call it the horizontal, across the different stages of a learner's journey. And I'm meaning from sort of kindergarten, nursery, early years, right through to university levels. So there are different things that we ask of students at these different levels, because critical thinking is being introduced at a very early age now in schools. I know my kids are being sort of taught these skills, and they're in about sort of 8, 9, 10, 11 sort of year bracket. So to cater, as I said, for this kind of horizontal, these different stages of students' life, we've developed these 3 separate brochures here, and you can see divided up into different stages. Again, all available from that link that you see on the screen. So let's keep moving on. So we looked at what the framework is and why it's been created, but importantly, how can teachers use this? How can teachers show to their students that what they're providing them are exactly the skills that they need to succeed in their lives? And I think this is a very good question to think about. It's a pretty difficult question. It's a deep question. There's no right answers. So as you've seen, one approach we've developed for this is to develop the framework that I've just shown. But how do we go about this in the classroom? So for teachers, we've identified at least 3, as we have on screen, 3 ways you can incorporate life skills into your teaching practice. Let's start with the most obvious, perhaps the most easiest of these, which is the noticing and exploiting. And this section is by far the longest, and I'll talk quite a long time on this, and sections 2 and 3 won't last very long. I am reading I'm looking to the side because I'm reading comments as they come in. I try not to let it distract me. So for the first section, I'm going to use examples from Empower second edition, and it's a course we've just published in January this year. And I'm going to look at the B1 level, which is an intermediate level in the middle of the 6 different levels that we offer. But as I say, there are concepts here that you can apply to any course book, really. So let's just have a very quick look at the structure of an Empower course, just so that you can understand what I'm going to talk about and the examples given where they come from. So Empower starts with a can-do, the objectives, and a warmer lead-in on the first page. And then there's 4 lessons, as they're called. A and B teaches grammar and vocabulary through the 4 skills, ending in a speaking task. And lesson C is where we focus on the grammar and the real-world communication. Then there are also end-of-unit tests and a mid and end-of-course competency tests as well. I'll be mentioning testing in later on in the talk. And then we have a final lesson D, where we integrate everything solidifying everything, and that's where the writing comes in as well. That's just to give you a brief flavour. So when we're using pre-made materials like course books, there are two things we can do. And one is to overtly, like obviously, exploit the opportunities to bring in the different life competencies. And we can do this by looking and identifying through a book, through the syllabus of a course book at the start of a course book usually, to identify any topics or tasks which are directly related to work or higher education. For example, if we want to teach a lesson that brings in interviewing skills and how to interview for a job, anything work related, and if I just click here, you can see, for example, in this book here, this is covered in Unit 2, as it talks about the workplace. And this is Unit 2, Modern Life. It provides a lot of opportunities for natural conversations to talk about the workplace. And these could be hypothetical conversations that you can use from a book, or you can make up as a teacher yourself, or they could be real life examples from students that are already working in the workplace. So by looking through a unit, you can find clear examples of where life skills can be exploited to focus on in your lessons. An example of this is in a listening task. If I just click again, here you can see it asks students to think of 5 reasons why an employer might not offer a candidate a job. And at the end, there's a discussion task around jobs and also on soft skills or life competencies that students need. So this is quite obvious. This really puts in your face the life skills. It talks about these openly and obviously. And what's even more interesting is when we can kind of slip in the development of the life competencies to our lessons and integrate them into a topic that maybe at first might not seem to be future or skills oriented, but the life skills we are developing are still transferable into real life situations. There's plenty of instances where we have embedded these covertly, kind of hidden, which are not so obvious. And I'll give you an example now. So in Unit 7 of, this is American in Power, there's 2 different varieties of English. It's all about house and home. And that's not a topic that you'd think about immediately when you think about higher education or the workplace. But looking here, the example here is a lesson 7B listening task. And if we zoom in, we can see students are being asked to identify 5 reasons why small towns are better than cities. And then in exercise C, 5 reasons for the opposite to be true. We're not asking students to offer their opinion at this stage, but to look at both sides of a situation. And this section C below is from the teacher's book and asks the teachers to elicit their students' ideas as you would normally in class. So we're leading to a situation later on in the unit where we're asking students to justify their decisions, and justifying decisions is a component of the core area, solving problems and making decisions. So could you have a guess which competency we're developing here? So we've got justifying decisions, we've got solving problems. Anyone want to write that into the chat box? So out of those 7 you see on the left, which skill do you think we're developing here? Critical thinking question mark. Yes, you're completely correct, Simona. Yes, critical thinking. Yeah, the higher order thinking skills, Mary. Yep, but it is specifically, if I just click on through to the next one, yep, you can see this is all part of critical thinking. Yes, we're also asking our students to collaborate and communicate too, but overall, if we look at how this is structured, we're really looking at the critical thinking skills. And in part F of the same lesson, we're continuing to develop the competency through feedback. And this is really where the teacher comes in. In the teacher's book, there's an example here, asks teachers to encourage, if I just click through again, there, it asks teachers to encourage students to justify their answers as far as possible. Here, we don't need to focus too much on error correction or getting the grammar correct, but teachers are encouraged to give feedback on the life competencies to help students. For example, why do you think that? Give me another reason why you feel this is true. So all the time pushing students to justify their decisions, to make them think critically, not accepting the very first answer that you get. So what you're thinking now is probably, how do teachers know where to identify and find all of the competencies in a course? And it would be a big ask, for you to do this. But we have developed for Empower anyway, this kind of treasure map for you to locate where all of these different competencies are in the course. If I click through to the next screen, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is how it looks inside, for example. And you can see that this is the start of the A1 level, and the competencies are on the left. You can see the critical thinking, the creative thinking as well, communication, all of the things we've mentioned already, appearing in the different colors. And it then references the page where you can actually find these in the course. The guide also highlights examples of where these competencies appear. This is just one example from one page. So again, if you're not using this course, then this guide is still, I think, quite valuable, as it identifies a number of the core areas to look for, as well as practical ways. It gives you help to teach these life skills in the classroom. And just drilling down a little bit further here, you can just see exactly how that looks. It's got a reference to where the page is, where you can find it, and it's also got a reference to if it's referring to higher education skills or more workplace-based skills. And it doesn't list everything in the book, every sort of paragraph or section. It just gives you an understanding of what's there and where you can find such examples. Okay, we can also teach life competencies, not only with language skills, but when we're teaching language systems. And by that, I mean grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. And here is another example later on in the same unit, 7B. Let's have a look at that. So if you look at the activity on the right, students need to fill in the correct preposition. In the case here, A, ways you can pay for things. Things hotel guests often complain about. So that's the preposition you need to fill in. However, this task has been created so that students only get a point for their team if they come up with an answer that no other team has. So ways you can pay for things, credit card, I was going to say chickens, bartering. You can pay for things in many, many different ways, but you'd only get a point if you come up with a creatively different answer. So this means students here, as you can see on the left-hand side, are generating, they're being sort of forced to generate multiple ideas and imagining alternatives and possibilities. These are the components of the core area of generating ideas. So could you guess the competency here? You haven't got them to help you. If you can remember what the 7 were. This isn't critical thinking, I'll give you a clue. Creative thinking, well done to Kubra. I'll give you 10 points for that first person to respond. So this is creative thinking. So it's a small adjustment to an activity, but I think here it makes a big difference. Okay, another quick example you can use. This is from the same lesson C, which is the everyday English, the real life language. We can already see that this relates at the top here to emotional development component. And the focus here is on developing empathy and relationships. So this is imagining how other people feel. Obviously, this is a very important skill needed in all aspects of life. So when students go through the exercise and complete the responses appropriately by thinking of another person's feelings, the teacher can pick up on and comment on how the students sound. So if they don't sound nice or empathetic or even if they're getting the grammar correct. And you can have fun here with this and maybe go over the top a bit. You've got in grey there, that must be exciting. So you're really making sure that students mean it, and they're not just saying, that must be exciting, like they would, probably because they're a bit shy or teenagers or what have you. So then it goes on to task 5, sounding polite, and the way that things are pronounced, which is not just about making the correct sound, but thinking about how you sound with the use of rhythm and intonation so that you're using language appropriately for the situation. And this is part of, you can probably guess it by now, so using language appropriately for the situation. This is about communication. I realize there's a lot of examples here that I'm giving, but I'm just trying to point out all these different areas that you can find in generally in a course. So Empower includes end of unit and mid and end of course tests, and the tests are a great way to check progress, obviously, and evaluate progress, so that we can make sure that a student has understood the language that they've just learned in the previous unit, for example. So this is equally important for both teachers and students to know that they've done the best job they can do, and that the student fully understands the unit content. So by reflecting on what we've done, we are here, I'll give you this one as well. People might be getting a bit weary. We are learning to learn. That's another one here that we're exploiting an example of. So far in this unit, we've looked at 4 different competencies that have been embedded into this course. And let's quickly look at the writing section here in lesson D. So here the written task is about writing an email, which develops the English of working together. So students need to write recommendations to offer choices, and also an email where they have to include useful information for a person to then do something. Then the students then analyse each other's writing to see if it makes sense to them, and if they've actually used the correct language from the earlier parts 4A and 4B in the unit correctly. So part C here is where the interaction takes place, by getting students to collaborate, to exchange their thoughts and help each other. It's not just about what they've done, it's about really collaborating and working together, and also making sure they've understood the work that's been done. So these life skills may not be obvious in the course books, but they're all in there, I promise you. So I told you that first part was quite a long one. Let's look now here at the second part here. So yeah, we've covered quite a lot of ground already. So what happens in the second part here is to add or modify an activity to focus on a core competency. So what happens if a teacher is using other material or any material and wants to modify existing activities in a book, or for example, wants to focus on the skill of social responsibilities because it wasn't covered in what they had prepared, or they just really want to do that this week. Well, we also can help with this. So you can see on screen here, we've developed these life competency activity cards, and these can be used with any course materials for each stage of the learning. As you can see again on the screen, you've got the young learners through to adult, and each individual card tackles a component from the life competencies. Let me give you one example here. We've created suggested activities that can be used in the classroom. And this example on screen shows the life competency of social responsibilities. If I click there, and the core area shown in the yellow part is the intercultural awareness. And this is the component of understanding aspects of your own culture. So this card gives teachers an activity they can use immediately and asks students to, in this example, look back over the current unit for representations of their local community. So here we're not only getting students in this activity to appreciate other cultures, but we're asking them to take a look at what they consider normal to them compared to other ideas of them as well. So what is normal to them? They're looking at their own culture. And here's a link at the top of the screen to an article that explains what the framework is, with videos and booklets, and also a link to these free activity cards that I've just shown you as well. And as I say, you can take a phone shot now, screenshot, or you can always watch this again to find that link. And as I did mention, there may be a couple of issues with our website at the moment, so please do come back to the site if it's not working at this current time. Okay, the final way then is to plan a whole lesson around a core competency or a component. And this then is really for those who are designing a course, or those who like to develop their own lessons. And so for this, we've developed this suite of Cambridge Life Competency, I can't say that still, can I? Life Competencies framework booklets. And you can see here, there's an introductory one on the left-hand side, and there's also a booklet for each of the different competencies. You can see here on the top of the pile is emotional development. And then again, on the right-hand side, there are the different booklets for the different stages of the students' kind of life cycle with studying English. So the booklets are packed with information, if I just click through here, and are available on the link that you've seen, cambridge.org/CLCF, and are available for free. So there's plenty of detailed information in here that can be applied to your lesson, so do have a look through there. So yeah, there's a lot of information in there, so please do visit those and have a look at them. Okay, I've gone through this quite quickly today, actually. So let me just give you a summary, and then we can maybe open up to a couple of questions at the end. We do have plenty of time, but I know people are always busy, so it's not a bad thing to have a quicker webinar. So what have we learned? Let's just click through the first one. That the skills that employers want and the skills that are needed for higher education can be taught in the language classroom. We can develop that right from an early age as well. And these are transferable to these environments, to higher education and success in the workplace. The skills in course books, especially with Empower, are taught overtly, so it's pretty obvious sometimes, and then sometimes covertly. So you don't always know you're developing the skills, but you are. And obviously the teachers can help further with that. There is guidance in Empower for the teacher on how to expand and really develop those skills further. Also, as I've shown on several occasions, we've created the various mapping guides for the different levels of the learner, and there's a mapping brochure specific to Empower if you are using Empower already. And this also helps us at Cambridge with the course design, so that we're developing the materials that are really fit for purpose. So we do the research, but we don't leave it there, of course. We use the research in course development. We've also looked at 3 different ways here to incorporate the framework in planning lessons and outcomes, and also course design, which is covered in the specific booklets. Or if you just want to create supplementary or adapt activities that you already have, then there are the cards as well that I mentioned to be able to do this. But the easiest way, I think, is to really go through the syllabus and have a look through the course books. So teachers can provide feedback not only around the language, but how well the students have collaborated with each other, or how well they've justified their responses, etc., etc. I guess it's down to the teacher really to to do what they feel is appropriate for their students, be it the language level, even though you can introduce all of these skills from a very low level, or what the students are aiming towards. They might be specifically more focused on higher education, getting to higher education, or maybe they are in higher education at the current time. So it depends what skills that you want to encourage. So I think that's it from me, actually. I finished a few minutes, 5 minutes early. I can already see there's a question there, but I'm going to leave it to, it's usually my role. I usually sort of speak to the presenters, but I haven't presented today, so I'm going to leave that to you, Katie.
So Simona is wondering, will the Empower second edition be suitable for adults who are going to be taking lingua skill test?
Yes, definitely. If you've not heard of this test, yeah, this is a general test that students can do. And I know that for lingua skill, that's obviously produced by Cambridge as well, that the test types in lingua skill are similar to the types of tests and questions, not the same questions, but the task types in the tests that are used in Empower. So there's a definite correlation there. Yeah, definitely. It would kind of help and prepare students in a way for the lingua skill test. Yeah.
Well, that's great. We've got a question from Angela in the chat box. Can I just say, if you have a question, can you put it in the Q&A box? It's easier to find. So Angela says that the Empower series seems very rich in content and asks whether the coursebook is advisable for big groups, because she has between 20 and 29 students in each class, making classroom management an issue at times.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously guidance for teachers, but there is material online as well. So it's not only the size of the class, but I know that's for a language class, it's usually, well, in my experience, it can be anything between sort of 15 to 25, but yeah, 30 is quite a large class. Sorry to hear that. But yes, you can definitely use it with larger groups. There's a lot of guidance for teachers, but also now we've got content online on our new Cambridge One platform. So if, for example, the pandemic comes back as well, then this course is a very flexible course. And yeah, I think you get an ebook as part of the course. So you can use the course with a larger group of students. You can use the course flexibly through the different things that we have. But yeah, I understand at the moment, hopefully teachers have got around that shift into moving online. Maybe you don't want to go back in the classroom, I don't know, but yeah, there are many different things you can do online that perhaps you can't do in the classroom. But I don't know, for me, being face-to-face with students in the past was so vital. It was important, just to have that nice feeling of how you're doing. Even giving a webinar today, I can't see anybody's faces. I can't gauge what's happening or speak to people. So yeah, it's a shame at the moment, but let's hope that things work out and we get back to normal again pretty soon, or a different normal.
And someone's asked how to get the book, please.
I'd speak to your local representative. I'd go to the Cambridge site, and I keep saying this, when it works, it will be working. We'll sort that out. But visit your local Cambridge rep and definitely ask about this course. It just launched in January of this year. So there's an Empower second edition, but also an American Empower as well, if that's a kind of English that you're needing. There is a website, obviously, as well, as if you go to the website, you can read up on Empower second edition there.
And thank you very much, Simon, for this talk.
That's all right. Yeah, and as I say, there's plenty of resources that you can use, even if you're kind of new to teaching the life skills and developing them. And again, it doesn't really matter what course you use, but there's a lot of information in there of what the skills actually are. It explains everything in great detail. In a kind of digestible way, so that you can really try and use these skills, because these skills I don't think are going away. It's something that our students are going to need right now if you're not teaching them already.
Great. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for attending today.